The morning after. Damage control always looks calm from the outside. Inside, it sounds like glass cracking under pressure. Blair called the emergency meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Not 9:05, not when everyone's awake. 9. The house felt different that morning, quieter, heavier. Like even the floors understood something had shifted. No music, no curling irons, no kitchen chatter. Just phones lighting up with notifications nobody wanted to open. Declan was in the hospital. Stable condition, they said. Stable doesn't mean fine. Stable just means not gone yet. Blair stood at the head of the dining table like she was addressing shareholders. No one speaks to press. No one posts. No one deletes anything else. That last one hit like a slap, because by morning, 3 girls had already scrubbed lake photos, deleted comments, untagged videos. Like you can erase a night by removing evidence of its existence. Blair's eyes moved across the room. Sloane's smudged mascara, Ryder's relaxed posture, Nova's stillness. Then she said the part nobody wanted to hear. We need consistency. And when someone says consistency, it means they're protecting a version of events, not necessarily the truth. "1042 becomes a weapon." Police asked for a timeline, not feelings, not theories, time. Who was on the dock after 10:30? Who saw Declan last? Who heard anything? And then they brought up the one thing nobody could argue with. 10:42 p.m. Declan's last outgoing message. Where are you? 4 words. Sent. Delivered. Read. After that, silence. The message wasn't to Sloane. It wasn't to Blair. It wasn't to Ryder, which somehow made it worse. Because if you don't know who he was looking for, you don't know what he was about to expose. Blair asked the officer what else they had. They said Declan's camera bag had been found near the east side of the dock. Zipped. Neatly zipped. Not waterlogged, not scattered, not half open like panic had touched it. Zipped like someone cared about preserving it. Sloane laughed once, too sharp, too fake, and said, "Maybe he zipped it himself." Maybe. Except the footage from 10:30 to 11:03 was corrupted. Not glitched, gone. That's a very specific window of time to lose, and specifics are where stories start bleeding. The zipped bag. People keep thinking the important part is the fall. It isn't. The important part is what stayed clean. Police laid out the evidence photos on the dining table. The bag. The red cord on the zipper pull. Dry seams. No sand. No lake debris in the teeth. Clean. Too clean. If someone slips unexpectedly on a dock, their belongings scatter. Cameras crack. Zippers split. People drop things like gravity is personal. But this looked arranged. Nova leaned in closer, eyes flicking over details like she was reading a map. Blair asked a question that wasn't meant for the officer. Did anyone touch the bag? The officer didn't answer directly. Chain of custody is ongoing, he said. That's a polite way of saying, we can't prove it, but we're thinking it. Ryder watched the photos and smiled like nothing was funny. Sloane's fingers shook around her mug. And then, quietly, too quietly, Blair said, "We need to know what he was recording. Not if, what." Because in her mind, the danger wasn't the fall. The danger was evidence. Evidence is leverage. And leverage makes people do ugly math. The first crack. Police requested voluntary phone checks, not full seizures, just cooperation. 5 people agreed immediately. 1 hesitated. It was barely a moment, but in a room like that, hesitation is a siren. Blair noticed. Nova noticed. I noticed. The officer asked again about 10:42. Who would Declan be texting? Who would he be looking for that late? No one answered, because answering would mean naming a relationship, and relationships are liabilities. Sloane said, "He was always filming. That's just Declan." The officer asked, "Was he filming inside private rooms?" Sloane's breath caught, because that question isn't about journalism, it's about access. And access is what turns a gossip account into something darker. Blair's composure started to fracture around the edges, just slightly, like hairline cracks in glass. "You all need to be consistent," she said again. Sloane finally snapped, "Consistent about what?" Silence. Because that's the question that reveals everything. Consistency only matters when you're protecting a story. And protecting a story means you're afraid of what the truth would do. The dock board. Later that afternoon, police returned to the lake house. They didn't interview anyone this time. They examined the dock. They measured the slope. They photographed the east side. They pressed down on the warped board. Nothing. Then the tech applied pressure sideways. The board creaked. Loud, hollow, unmistakable, like a warning. Fresh splintering showed along the edge. Not rot, not age. Impact. Sideways torque. That's what bothered me most. Downward weight doesn't splinter a solid board unless it's rotten. This board wasn't rotten. So what caused the splintering? The officer asked the same question again, slower this time. Who was on the dock after 10:30? 3 girls looked at each other. One shook her head too quickly. Ryder said casually, "I went inside for ice." Sloane said, "I was with alumni near the porch." Blair said, "I was in the kitchen checking inventory." All technically possible, all slightly misaligned. And in misalignment, police smell motive. The doc doesn't care about your alibi. Wood only remembers weight. Something else was planted. That night, the house tried to sleep. They failed. Because sleep requires one thing none of them had anymore: safety. Sloane kept checking her phone, like the screen might suddenly tell her how to fix what was happening. Kinsley whispered prayers into her pillow. Harlow walked the hallway twice, barefoot, like movement could outrun thought. Nova sat at the kitchen table and stared at the same evidence photo for 20 minutes. The zipped bag, the red cord, the clean seams. And then she said something softly, almost to herself. "He didn't just film." Blair looked up. "What do you mean?" Nova's eyes stayed on the photo. "People think cameras are the threat," she said. "But cameras make people perform." She paused. "Audio makes people confess." No one spoke, because everyone in that moment replayed their own private words from last night, the things they said when the lights were low, when they thought the dock was just scenery, when they thought no one was listening. And that's when the fear shifted. Not fear of scandal, fear of exposure. Because if Declan had more than video, if he captured what people say when they think they're safe, then the fall wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning.